Hi, welcome back to the Senior Year Game Plan podcast. I am Michelle Ehrlich, your host. I am a proud Army veteran. I'm a teacher. I'm a parent. I'm the author of two career-focused books, Best Careers for 2025 and Beyond, and Career Guide, New Careers for Next Generation People. My mission is to guide young people in discovering careers that they love, careers that are high demand, future proof, and aligned with their passions through this podcast and my YouTube channel and initiatives like something I'm starting with New York City Alumni Association networking. I am dedicated to helping students and their families to navigate the transition from high school to their next chapter. I'm passionate about connecting young people with networking and mentorship opportunities because I know firsthand how transformative they can be. So today we're going to dive into Unit 7 of the podcast. It is the Senior Year Game Plan podcast. And this unit, we are talking about networking, professional networking, and gaining real-world experience. We have on our program today, because networking and real-world exposure are the cornerstone of career success, we have someone here who can give us guidance. Also, he's in the New York City area as we are at Forest Hills High School in Queens. We're talking to students about career success through networking and mentoring, because the earlier that students start, the better. And whether it's finding a mentor or attending career fairs or participating in programs with hands-on experience, like we have Jonathan here to talk about, these steps can make all the difference. So Jonathan, we have here from Stacks and Jewels. It's a program that prepares students for careers in tech. And so it's very aligned with what we're doing in our podcast and also on my YouTube channel, looking at how technology is going to influence and change the game plan for high school students and people in their 20s, people that are studying. What are the kind of next generation careers? Hence the name of my YouTube channel, Hot Next Generation Careers. But we want to talk to Jonathan about Stacks and Jewels. Usually I'm here with Amari Beirut. She's a senior at Forest Hills High School. She is actively exploring her own career path, which is where she might be right at this very second, where she's supposed to be here. But we forgive her because teenagers are like this. They're always looking into different things. But we want to, Jonathan and I are going to kind of unpack why and how of networking and mentorship, and maybe provide some actionable advice to help students, if you're a parent, your child, take the next step towards career success. So Jonathan, I kind of introduced your Stacks and Jewels, but can you tell us a little bit about it? You and I got into this a little before I pressed record. How does it help young people build professional networks and gain real-world experience?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Let's see. So Stacks and Jewels itself, really, it is centered around our mission, which is training overlooked populations in the climate tech skills needed for jobs in building automation. That's a lot of words and it's a lot to unpack there, but really it's around the technical skills needed to combat climate change and affect energy goals and so forth. It is allowing the accomplishment of that through the work that can be done in building automation. And building automation, very specifically, is the management of large buildings using computers and sensors and technical systems. And it is very much a tech-forward update to how buildings have been managed. Yeah, I would say in terms of your question about networking, that really is something that we work on in our training program, is bringing professionals from the industry that we're training towards, bringing professionals into the classroom and not having them talk in front of the class, but individually work with the students to do some hands-on activity. Because through just kind of standing around and doing something together, there begins a relationship between the student and the professional where networking is a possibility in the future. And we really work to cultivate that in our classroom, where we're very diligent about sending a follow-up thank you email, making sure to connect with the person on LinkedIn, making sure that they understand how much you appreciate when you email to thank them. Try to recall something that you shared with that person, like, oh, I remember when we were stripping the wires together, I kept on clipping my wires, or something to that effect. To personalize it, that is the creation of networking. And
Right,
that's how
exactly.
you get entree into these industries.
I want to go backwards because you were talking about how you have and a co-founder of Stacks and Jewels met each other. And so, that kind of networking, like sometimes it could be daunting to high schoolers to think, oh, how am I going to launch a project that makes sense to me? How am I going to get my ideas kind of in front of other people or add value to this world besides getting a job? Like you and your co-founder created something, and your vision couldn't have probably existed without the networking that you had together. Going back to Bill Gates or some Zuckerberg, everybody has some kind of partner in this. For students, I would say actionable advice going from you and your partner creating this amazing program together, that you should look around who you're with, who you are around, that you could potentially partner with, because you never know who's going
Yeah,
to be your next network, your next partner, your network in a professional environment. It could be just the friends that you have growing up.
100%. And so, my co-founder and I, Mike, we were best friends from second grade. And so we have had this, lifelong relationship that has built, a level of trust, a level of understanding, a level of seeing how each other thinks and so forth, that has really made this company that we're growing, something that I can really, really feel solid in leading, because I am confident that my co-founder has the same, best interests, same goals, same feelings, same basis for why we're doing this that I do. So it's having those relationships with friends that really, hey, Emery.
Hey, sorry I'm late. No,
Oh, no
no.
worries.
Well, we're just talking about having relationships with your friends could actually help you in the long run of in your career, in your professional attainment, just like Jonathan and his co-founder in Stacks and Jewels. Together, Jonathan was like a techie guy and his friend was an educator, and they together co-founded this idea to high school students in this technical skills that are needed in buildings now. And so, like, even if you are concentrating in healthcare or graphic design or whatever it is that you want to contribute to the world, there's still people that you can collaborate with that have different skills, and maybe your skills complement theirs and you can actually form a team like Jonathan and his co-founder, or you can use those skills to formulate some, or I'm sorry, use your network that even you might have in high school or from your other kind of clubs or any other type of network, that you never know. This Jonathan and his best friend were friends from second grade, and here they are collaborating and company owners together. So you never
Yeah.
really know what networking is going to bring to, and what kind of impact your friendships that you have now might have in the future of your life. So, Amory, we do welcome you to the program. This is our rock star senior at Forest Hills High School, who always has interesting opinions and advice and insights that we hadn't thought about because we're not seniors in high school. So
Mhm.
we like to have this kind of perspective from Amari. Thank you so much. I think she dropped out and she's going to come back again. Here she comes. Maybe a technical glitch. Okay. That's good, good, good. So we have some questions, and Amory had also the questions for Jonathan. We included them in the Google Classroom. So you can pull that out, but I'm going to just continue talking about networking, our Unit 7 here on Episode 7 of the Senior Year Game Plan. We're really leaning into how you can find those networking and mentoring opportunities. So Jonathan has a networking that he did with his grade school friend who had a different skill set as him, and together they decided to form Stacks and Jewels, which trains high school students in New York City for these specific type of technical program. And Jonathan, you said that this is like a trade skill that somebody then after these students, well, kind of explain the program. How long does it take? Is it for seniors? Is it for student 18 to 24-year-olds?
So
Yeah.
we have two programs. One we teach in high school, and it's part of the computer science curriculum for juniors and seniors, and that runs through the school year. And then we additionally have a program that focuses on young adults, 18 to 24, so new graduates. And we really are seeking out those high school graduates who, just don't know what the next step is post-secondary. College is an option, or maybe college isn't an option. But there is a decision that has to be made of like, do I know what I'm going to college for? Am I just going because my parents say I have to go? Or am I just going because everybody else in my grade is going? Like, what's my goal? And some people, myself included, I took a long time to go through. I started and stopped and started and stopped. And it was, I look back at that and I'm like, maybe I should have given myself some time just to kind of figure out, I really do want to go to college. I do want to, learn, and I do want to improve my chances. And until you make that decision, it really is open to like a lot of opportunities are out there that, similar to Stacks and Jewels, where if you've just graduated, you are curious, you're interested in technology, this is a great opportunity to get into the tech industry in a way that actually delivers on jobs. I mean, that's one thing that I've seen a lot of students come in. We're disappointed with other training programs that are like, train for this, there's tons of jobs, train for this, there's tons of jobs. Okay, and here's your certificate, good luck. And then they disappear, and the job part is really all left on the student who just trained, didn't really know what the market was like, didn't know how to get hired into this market. Like a lot of big question marks are left in front. Whereas at Stacks and Jewels, we really concentrate on job placement at the end of graduation. We spend 6 months really working to bring about job placement, because that's really the goal here. That's what we're trying to do, is get into a family supporting job, like something where you can start now, you can continue to learn things, take new certifications, become more valuable to the company, and the company necessarily has to pay you more because you're raising your value in the field.
Okay,
And
hold on. So let
sorry.
on this job you're talking about, what is the name of this profession?
So it has multiple names. It is called a building automation technician, a field technician, an energy manager. Let's see. Yeah, a facilities engineer. Like all of those are the title of the same job. So this is one of the complications that the field and training towards is companies are hiring with different names. So if you go to Indeed and you type in building automation technician, you're only going to see a fifth of the jobs because they might be named something else and they might be named something else. So what we have found is by proactively going out to the companies, Stacks and Jewels is really extending that connection and kind of on the student's behalf, networking ahead of it. So kind of establishing this rapport between Stacks and Jewels and Tech Systems. They're a company that we've had like 18 graduates placed and into jobs there. And so with that relationship, you've got a network between ourselves vouching for the ability, knowledge, curiosity, and character of these students who go through our program. They prove to show up on time, learn some really difficult technical skills, made it all the way through the program. That really speaks. Sure, the technical skills are there, and that's important that they understand the technology. But I would say even more important is taking on something so difficult as this really technical software that we teach going through 4 weeks of training, really dense training, and coming out the other end and being able to, to explain what you did, like being able to actually point at something that you built and be like, yeah, I built this and I understand how I did it. Ask me any questions. I'll tell you how I did it. That the process of learning something that difficult proves to an employer that you're worthy of being trained because you have proven that you've learned something really difficult in a short amount of time. And because you've proven that, now as the building automation company, the one thing with technology driven jobs is they're always changing. It's always the new software. And then there's new software that you have to learn all the new stuff. And then, something else just came out and that's new and so forth. So you're constantly having to learn. So if we train you towards one skill, it's going to be outmoded in a year. But if we train you in how to learn something difficult, you can take that ability and just keep on adjusting to the next and the new and learn it and learn it and learn it. So yeah, I think that's a big change in approach, is thinking about like, can you do something difficult? If you can, that proves to an employer that you're worth investing.
So it sounds like you go out to specific employers. I don't know how you target these companies, but you target companies and you say, hey, you're going to need this automation, or what do you need? What do you need students to know how to do? And then you go and find the students and teach that to them, and you have the classes?
Well, so there's this established industry of building automation. There are companies called system integrator companies. They basically work with buildings that are either being built and they're putting in the automation systems and all the computer system, or they're working with existing buildings, like older buildings that they have to go and retrofit, put in building automation systems inside that building. So those two types of buildings are really the companies that contract to those buildings are the targets, are the companies that we're going after, because they're the ones that need people to go in the field, have a laptop, open up the laptop, be able to jump onto the network, look at whatever errors are going on. There's a sensor for the temperature on the 80th floor that is just showing 0. So it's obviously broken. We need to send somebody up there to go reboot that little sensor, make sure it gets a good reading, and then we're good. And that's the type of work. It's really figuring out faults in the network and going and fixing. And that's the role that these field technicians really do, is they do a lot of figuring out communications issues and fixing. And
You said
so
something about a 4-week program?
it's actually a 14-week program.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but
That's very good compared to a 4-year degree.
yes, it is indeed. And, students are generally coming out to a job around $27 to $28 an hour. So it is something that changes the game significantly from what a lot of our trainees are coming in with is, I do Uber Eats, or, I work a cashier at CVS, or I do, whatever, earning around that $18, $17 an hour. And it's just tough to make ends meet at that level.
Yeah.
So finding a job that starts you a little bit up and having to do this training and having to work at it for a good 3 months, like that's a strain. That's a challenge you have to put onto yourself. But if you can do that, it raises your earning potential to such a degree that it makes it make sense, so that you can kind of get a foothold and start really moving yourself forward in your career.
And so then at the end of the training, you said you kind of connect the individuals, the students, the graduates with a job. And so are these like pension, union, benefits, or is it just like an hourly position?
Let's see here. So generally they have Ks, they have insurance. I don't know about pensions, but they definitely have standard benefits that are conveyed. So it's definitely like a full-time, it's like, standard, straightforward benefits that are conferred. Usually what we found is students who, if their work history is kind of choppy, like if it's been Uber Eats and CVS and whatever, They may not have the resume that says to this company like, oh, they're ready to be hired. So we've had a lot of companies take them on as interns where they pay them, $19 or $20 an hour to start. They work for 3 months, prove that they're, teachable and coachable, and then get hired on at 27 to 28. So
Okay, so
that seems to be
that's like the standard. So how, Jonathan, do you find these high school students? And like, how can high school students, somebody like Amory, get involved, or Forest Hills High School for that matter?
So we're partnered with Henry Street Settlement. They provide our classroom and also a lot of our recruiting efforts, but we're looking to extend our recruiting to new graduates from high school who don't really know what direction to go and are looking for a training that can get them a job and get them into the workforce. And I think that it's basically through, if you go to our website, stacksandjewels.org, that will give you at least an overview of what the program is, what you can expect, what you're going to be learning. And, the best way to get involved and take the course is to go to Henry Street and sign up through their membership portal. Their workforce development group has a website that, and
And
I
so
can
it's not just open to people who live at the Henry Street settlement. It's open to.
yeah, it's open to anybody in the 5 boroughs. You just have to join their Jobs Plus program or JET program just to be part of that program. But then the program itself is free, and yeah, it's all provided for through Henry Street.
Wow, that is interesting. And so you, Jonathan, you're on the tech side. Your partner is an educator. You were saying that the two of you guys were teaching the classes.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, this is a
So this is real
seven-year-old.
boots on ground. Good for
Oh,
you.
yeah. Yeah. This is a 7-year-old company. And we started this actually living together in Mike's brother's attic in Boston because we just wanted to run the program in a city and see if it was even going to work. And he lived in LA, I lived in New York, and we were like, okay, there is an opportunity at some schools in Boston. All right, let's just do it. And so we kind of somehow convinced our wives and fiancés that this was a good idea. And we moved and totally bootstrapped it, like lived in the same bedroom for a year because it saved us so much money that we were able to funnel it back into the program and to pay our salaries, various things like that. But it is through that struggle that we figured out like, oh, wow, some of this program, it doesn't really work. Some of it really works. And getting to know students who had a really different experience than myself or Mike, and seeing how to deliver a really high quality educational program. That's what that year taught us. And then all of a sudden we heard about an opportunity in New York, and we moved the whole thing to New York City, and we've been there ever since. So that's really what the bootstrapping it is. Where as of a year and a half ago, I was still teaching our high school program at UA Maker in Lower Manhattan, and then also at City High School. So I was in the classroom, doing the do, and it was awesome. I really, really, really
So
enjoyed it.
it's such an inspiration, I think, to find like having a vision or go of kind of seeing a problem and figuring out a solution, but also because we're going back to networking and connecting and mentoring, not on your own. So you were with a small group of individuals. You relied on each other. So this kind of networking, this kind of being there for each other, even you said you had a spouse or a fiance. That is also a somebody to lean on, an extra set of ears to listen to you. So, like this, everything that is accomplishable is much more accomplishable through the expansion to other people, right? So networking. So we're like on advice on networking. Ari, I don't know if you want to jump in here. I don't want to talk over you.
Yeah, so while you were talking, I got interested because you said the name of the website, so I looked it up. And I was looking at reading like the description and everything, and it's just like it's really into it. Like it's something that I think most of my friends would be interested in because they don't really like they're going to college. Their plan is to go to college because, like you said, most kids they see everyone else going, so they obviously want to like not be out of the box, so they're gonna
Yeah.
pursue the same thing. So I think like introducing this to kids like in our school is gonna be idea not just for the company but for the kids as well. I did have a question that's not on the Google Docs, if that's okay. How like if they start in the program, is it like a payment they have to make, like anything like that? Like is it like a non-profit?
Yeah, it's a nonprofit.
Oh,
So
okay.
the program itself is free. It's paid for by we have some family foundations that help us pay for it, and then the state also pays part of it.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, that was one thing that we were really aware of is you're asking someone to take 3 months off, and going out of pocket further is like, God, I can't imagine
Yeah.
because it's intense. You're going to class for 4 hours a day. Some of our students are able to work kind of the other half of the day, but it's really tough. So yeah, making sure that it didn't come at a cost was really important to us.
And you
So
mentioned also about that it was not, does everybody get in, or is there a qualification process where you look and you see, well, this person, no, I don't think so.
Well, so that's really a part of our open door policy per applications and per admissions. We take in all applicants as long as you have a GED or equivalency and have the ability to work in the United States. Those are really the two qualifications that we put out there. There really aren't prerequisites of math skills or computer skills. I mean, there is a fluency in English that's required just because our courses are offered in English, but it is really open to a wide gamut of students. We've had, and we very purposefully, and Mike, my co-founder Mike, really theoretically agrees with the idea of a heterogeneous classroom being the strongest way to educate people, where it isn't all college grads in the room. It is college grads who have some strength and maybe some math, but it's also a GED person who has real strength when it comes to understanding machinery or understanding systems or computers or gaming or whatever. By keeping various levels of people all together, you find that those strengths really complement each other. And all of a sudden, somebody who didn't feel like they were smart enough to be taking a tech class all of a sudden taps into some ability that they didn't realize they had. And now the computer science graduate next to them is like looking after them and seeing what they're doing because they're doing really interesting stuff. So we've seen the levels of experience all kind of disappear and become the same when you can treat the whole class as a team. And you're just like, all right, everybody's going to pass this test. Everybody's going to program this light. Everybody's going to do this together. Instead of packing the class full of the highest achievers that we can find, we find that it's just a better overall educational experience for all of us.
Yeah, right. And then it sounds like Amory could fit right in, like as a female. There's no a dominant gender there, like equal opportunity type of an occupation. It sounds like it's
So
a good opportunity for women.
it is a great opportunity for women. It is an industry that currently is absolutely dominated by men, like 4% are women, to such a degree that we actually hold one of our cohorts is an all women's cohort because we saw that, we would have out of a 25-person class, we'd have 6 women. That was good, but there was still, the men would get louder and more aggressive, and they would kind of out comment the women, not outperform, not outdo, anything like that, but just would be louder and thus more present. And so sometimes the women you had to kind of stop and be like, hey, just making sure that you're advocating for yourself here. Are you picking up what we're trying to teach here? And so we found that doing an all women's course, it really let a lot of lot of people open up and shine in ways that they didn't in the co-ed class. And that actually came from our experience. We taught an all women's course for City Ed School and had like a small group of 10 young women, but it was so powerful to see how, they went from being uncertain about this weird tech course that they were signed up for by their guidance counselor, and they were really not too into it. And then they realized, oh, wait, this is kind of like a supportive environment and we're doing something interesting tech-wise. Okay. And then as like they realized nobody's going to jump on them, they're not going to be wrong, it just really led to a lot of confidence opening up. So,
Yeah, my daughter does a STEM in the South for Queens. It's a mechanics class on Tuesdays and Thursdays after school. And she says the same thing, that there are 3 girls, herself and 2 others. Everyone else is guys. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but they maybe have a different way of learning, different learning styles. And the guys tend to hover around them and try to dominate, take over. And so it's not necessarily conducive. And so I can see how a separate class where people were being able to, or females in a non-dominant field like tech, like mechanics, like her, could really benefit from feeling more free to get the confidence to ask the questions and get it wrong so they can get it right. So
I think especially at the beginning, like, because that's really where we are. We're the entry level to this career and this industry. So this is like you learning the basics, super basics. And especially in that kind of environment where you're learning those super basic things, having a comfortable classroom where you feel like being vulnerable isn't a problem, like isn't a downside, like I don't understand this is not a view of lack of intelligence. You saying you don't understand it is a sign of intelligence, because this stuff is wildly complicated. And sometimes, you're learning something brand new, and it gets confusing. So instead of having to, be stoic and cool in school where you feel like you have to put on a certain kind of way, our classroom is very open. We have like appreciations at the end of class where we have students just sit down and talk about who in the class helped them, who did they witness helping someone else, like that type of thing, because we want to build a classroom where, where learning is something that can really go on, and it's not just like stuffing it down your throat so you can say it back to me. It's like, learning something difficult, as I was saying before. That's a big process, and I just making sure that classroom gives you the the solidity to do that type of work is what we're all about. And that's why we partnered with Henry Street too, is they really help food insecurity, eyeglass issues, like all these things that students come to class and you're like, oh my God, what a total blocker to learning. You just don't have glasses. You didn't know you needed glasses, but now you're in the back of the room, like kind of squinting and so forth at the board, and we can tell. And it's like there are tons and tons of programs that can offer free glasses. So like, why not take that blocker out of the way and make the class easy to digest by getting the person glasses? So it's just a lot of these little things that don't have much to do with technology that really make the most effective technology teaching program.
So you had mentioned a few things like Henry Street Settlement is another networking opportunity. Like if you do nothing more than just listen to this podcast episode and you're in New York City, you'll know that you can reach out to Henry Street Settlement as a way to network. They have programs, they have classes, they have probably, if you join something with them, there's like-minded individuals you can network within your class. And then you're saying at the end of class, I wanted to go back to that when they graduate, you help place them into specific jobs in specific companies because you've researched those companies already and you know what those companies are looking for. So you're delivering these companies a product. So you're the hand of networking there as well. But do the companies then come to the Henry Street settlement and they look at each of the individuals in the class and say, oh, I want this one, or
So yeah, so what we've done in terms of a graduation event is there's this great space down by Union Square called Civic Hall that is like just a technical learning space, but also has a few event spaces. And what we do is we take over one of the rooms there, and each of our students, they set up a table kind of science fair style with like an air conditioning unit or a heat pump unit or a laptop with whatever piece of software they built for controlling the boiler systems, or a lighting setup and showing how they're controlling that using Python. This way, kind of similar to how I was talking about that networking conversation. This way, when each table is like two students standing there, being able to take any question about whatever they've studied, obviously demonstrating that they understand, and they'll bring people over and show them this is what a heat pump does, this is how it actually works, and, showing them the details. By doing that, they're demonstrating their ability. They're demonstrating, oh, I've learned something, and so forth. And this way, all the people who come around, it may be an employer, it may just be a supporter, the student doesn't know. So they just have to kind of pitch and be their charming selves and kind of tell everyone what they've learned. And we found that's the best way because it creates those little social moments where two people kind of see eye to eye on something. Someone says something funny, shows a little vulnerability, the other person likes that. Like, there's like these little moments that you have, and that's the beginning of a network. And that's the like ding, where all of a sudden you're talking to this person who happens to be at a company that does building automation. They remember, yeah, I was speaking to that guy, John. He was at this table. He was telling me about his lights, blah, 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 blah. It seemed really interesting. He was asking me some good questions. I'd like to, see if he's interested in a job. And they know that our students, as I said, are able to learn things, understand the basics of the built environment, have, tech understanding, that if they reach out to any of those students, they'll be able to take on that job and do whatever they need to. And it's out of that kind of science fair event that we get the really good placements that we get, because the employers are able to come there. They don't have to make it weird and like come into the classroom and be like, those three, it's a lot more kind of speed dating style, I guess, but without realizing you're speed dating or something. So yeah.
Very interesting. So, Marie, I think I cut you off last time. Do you have a question that you wanted to still ask? I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I don't remember what I was going to say
Oh,
now.
no problem. No problem. So we're talking about networking and connecting. We happen to all be in New York City. So we are talking about public schools and New York City students. What would you guys say would be, and Marie, I'm posing this to you as well. Do you see any particular challenges faced by New York City public schools when it comes to finding networking or mentoring opportunities? For me as a parent of a senior in high school, I can say that everybody, because there's no like central neighborhood school per se, everybody scatters when they leave the school, that it's hard to kind of connect outside of school for New York City students. And so we need to, I think, this is my opinion based on my daughter, we have to find our own opportunities to network. Like there's not we said centralized one school in the neighborhood and one neighborhood or two neighborhoods that it feeds, where there's so many different neighborhoods, people coming from all over. And so we need to be, I think that New York City public school students need to get out of you have to do it yourself. There's almost nothing built in unless you are really kind of holding hands with the guidance counselor staff, if you're lucky enough to have that much attention, or a teacher or two, maybe somebody in your own social network if you go to a church or synagogue, or maybe if you're on a sports team, but that really everybody is kind of fending for themselves. I think it's a challenge, but I'll leave it to you guys. What do you think, Marie?
I think that in terms of getting to know these opportunities, my guidance counselor, they always post things on like the email and the Google Classroom. But when it's time for a student to take that step and to get into that program, one of the hardest things, well, for me, was the requirements. So maybe if there were a lot of kids that were trying to get into that program, it would be hard. And for example, there was this one program I was trying to get into. It's an online program, but it's based here in New York City. There were like so many kids from all over the country, and they were only accepting like 10 or 15 kids, and we had like over 100 kids like trying to get in. The teachers do like postings online. They do like give us opportunities, and they do tell us like, hey, this is available for you. This is what it's doing. There's the description, what you need, the times and days. But it's really like to take a step and to even get involved. Kids don't really do that. Kids don't really see it unless I feel like a better way that it would get kids more involved if it was maybe displayed and advertised in the school. Maybe if your teacher would say, by the way, guys, this is available for you if you like business, there's an internship doing that, or if you like maybe working with your hands and then you like caring for people, there's a shelter, animal shelter, you could go do that. They don't really do that, and I think that would be a good idea. That's what I would want for me. So, and I think other kids would want that too. Maybe senior teachers more involved and actually trying to get you to do other things instead of heading straight for college. Because I know there's kids that don't want to do that.
Do you think it's worth like doing a single TikTok handle that just shows like what our class is like and what the job that we train for is like? Like, would you be interested in that?
Yeah, actually, yeah, because you see, with this podcast, I wanted to do something like that, but I don't know how. Like, I've been thinking about it. It's a way to really get it out there because I don't use TikTok. It's just because I don't want to get addicted to social media. But I got it like maybe for 2 minutes and that's just it. Because, like, no.
Dude, I
But
know. It's
there
like it
are,
draws you in and you're like, I'm
yes,
just going to spend 1 minute, and 5 minutes later, you're like, oh my God, oh my God.
yeah. But I know, like, it's not only me, but a lot of the kids use TikTok, they use Instagram, and putting the website out there, putting the program out there is a way to reach them. There's a lot of advertisements on these platforms, so you can do it, but you would have to pay the app to get it on there, obviously. But it is a way to reach them. It is a way to get their attention because it's like right in front of them instead
Yeah.
of a teacher coming up to telling them, or it's on Google Classroom or an email. I think it's a way to get it out there. So I think it's a good idea.
For us with our podcast, we're trying, and with my YouTube channel, I'm trying my hardest to reach as many ears and as many eyes as I can. That's another idea is for I'm doing the Forest Hills High School alumni network, and so another opportunity for networking and mentoring. But I definitely can include you guys, Stacks and Jules,
That would be great.
in a program. But it's really we're talking about like advice of for students that may not feel confident reaching out. Like Amari was just saying, that if it's not in front of them, then necessarily a student won't really go for it. And they maybe won't reach out to potential mentors or professionals in the desired field. But you're an example, Jonathan, of your company, and Henry Street Settlement is another example of how to network. Also, this podcast, and Amari just even getting herself out there to listen to the new ideas, the networking that I want to have going on with Forest Hills High School and all of the high schools in New York City. Any other ideas of how the schools or the communities can better support the students in accessing mentorship and networking opportunities? Jonathan, you're doing a great job. I know the guidance counselors in Forest Hills High School are doing a great job. But what else can we do to give students support in accessing mentorship and network?
I've heard of one program that started finding like students who are interested in being ambassadors of their program, and they would have like a training over the summer that was like some kind of fun trip that they got trained in learning about what this program was, and then they would go to their school and basically people would hear, oh, so-and-so is an ambassador for this training program that does so-and-so. And you could go and talk to that student and learn about, whatever that student knew about the program. And, I thought that was kind of weird at first because I was like, wow, wait, you're going to have to train a person for every high school and so forth. But if you think about, exceptional students like Amari here who like put themselves out there and try to, get their network going as much as they can, there are a lot of those students and really kind of leveraging that as the program to like get those students to talk about your program in amongst the students is going to be even more effective than a guidance counselor. So yeah, I think that might be an interesting
Yeah,
idea.
I think, Omri, I think we just nominated you as the president and ambassador to start a program like this at Forest Hills between you and Alice Bow, who usually is with us. She couldn't make it today. You guys can start to be these kind of ambassadors and letting people know. I can see it I can see your mind is racing here because you are, every time we learn about something new, Omri is excited to go back and tell her friends. I can see that, and if I can tell, or if we can explain it to Amari, and Amari can even tell one or two people, that's helping one or two people. So the more, the better. Amari, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was, because when you were talking, I was like, I actually know a guy that would love to join this. Like, I know people. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
totally.
so, Almarie, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. So, you're a senior at Forest Hills High School. What inspired you to start to participate in our podcast internship? If you go to any career fair, is it that you want to you're looking into different opportunities for yourself, and how to align your passions with the different careers, or you're also trying to help other people? I think you're a real helping person. I can tell that about you.
Yeah. I would say I'm a really good helping person. Like, I try to get involved in everything to make it easier because I know what it's like to be confused and not know where to go next. And I really didn't like that feeling. But I found this podcast when I was trying to find something that was connected to what I wanted to major in at the time. I did change my major. I wanted to do advertising, but I think joining this podcast, it allowed me to not only continue like my process in advertising and my path. I didn't like necessarily just push advertising out the window because I changed my major. I still decided to pursue it, so I'm minoring in advertising now. And the podcast, I didn't really know what it was about, but when I read more about it, I decided to choose it because it was a way to help people, like you said. It was a way for me to help other kids my age that are in the same process I am in, to open up their mind and not only be maybe feeling bad because they don't want to go to college, or they probably do but they don't know where to go or what to do. I feel like before this podcast I only had this limited mindset that there's only certain amounts of things I could go into and there's not really much that I could maybe see myself doing because all of these classes, and then I maybe don't want to take this class, or well, how am I gonna pay for college, or what am I gonna do? So in this podcast, I learned that you could join the army and then you could find a way you could also help people in that way if you want to be maybe on the physical side and still do classes. I know people that would like to do that, or you could like this program. You could run this program and it could help you find jobs and find people who actually care. If I didn't have this podcast, people always say that the public cares, but you just don't see them caring. This podcast showed me that people actually care, and I'm seeing people caring. So I think that's good.
And you too. So this is, I mean, you're caring, but you're also like exploring opportunities to see what the different paths are, and it's good to know that there are different paths, that you don't have to go
Yes.
to 4 year school. You don't have to wait for finishing your degree, then get a bachelor, I mean, get a master's, then sometimes that is the final thing that you want, but then there's also stepping stones throughout that. So, for example, Jonathan's program, and that you get employed quicker than 4 years, much quicker. And while you're employed, then you can still pursue perhaps something in the evening relating to an advanced degree in this field of building facilities manager, to then go up the ladder, and that you're not just a technician, but at least you have your foot in the door with some opportunity that is more financial better than Uber Eats or CVS. So you don't have to necessarily stay there, but to start at a better place. And that's always what I said about I'm an Army veteran, so I use the Army as an just to show as an opportunity for non-traditional paths that one can get training in different ways. And I always going back to networking and connecting to other people. The mentorship and the connections that I made with my military career is endless, and it provides. So it's been so fruitful for me to connect with others, network, improve my career opportunities, improve my options just by knowing about other things. So the more that one can connect to people, the better. Jonathan, I don't mean to cut you out here. Do you want to add something?
No. I just, yeah, no, I think you're nailing it on the head. Is like relationships throughout your whole career are going to be very important. And one key thing that I do want to stress is business network connections and friends are kind of two different things. And they can be the same thing. Like you can have a friend who's a really good business connection, but you could also have someone that you're like, man, I could give or take that person, but they have a really good connection to XYZ company. And so when you're going through things and like going from one job to another, interviewing people and so forth, just try to remember that you're trying to get these people into your network so that even if they're not going to be the person you're calling, every single day to catch up, they still hear about you, know you do quality work or know you're in a certain field, and they can recommend you to all of their friends. And it's something that really that I had to learn early on is like, don't burn bridges. Just because you're like, whatever, that person didn't do anything for me, I'm off to the next. And you then all of a sudden 3 years later, that person has just skyrocketed to the head of something. And you're like, oh, I guess I should have stayed in touch with that person. Oh, well, my bad. And so you have to keep in mind that business networking is a lifelong deal. So when you get out there, make those connections, keep those connections, don't burn any. And the other thing I would say is if you're in high school, join LinkedIn. Great way to network. Really great way to kind of get a network and develop it. So
So when you talk about LinkedIn, I think of LinkedIn as very hands off, that it's not real people, that it's just too overwhelming. It's like, yeah, I don't feel that it's grassroots. In fact, the opposite. Do you have a better experience than that?
very, very different because I have gone in and focused in on the niche of building automation. If I went in and just was like tech in general and went at LinkedIn, yeah, it's too broad. It's way too broad. There's no real interaction. It's just liking pictures and commenting about goofy memes and stuff like that. But once you get into I basically, all of my friends, all of my connections are in the building automation industry. And so what has now happened is my feed is very, very specific. And I have now, now I interact with leaders in the building automation space and, different people who are doing stuff in that space. I interact with them as a networking way for me to stay kind of in these people's feed so that when I have a group of students, I can share photos of my students, say, hey, we're having a graduation. Anybody in the industry, if you're looking to hire, come this Tuesday, that type of stuff. That is what LinkedIn really has provided for me, is this communication specifically to this industry. And I can totally see how being a high school student, if you just come in and don't use LinkedIn in a very specific way, if you just befriend kind of your family and like relatives and so forth, your LinkedIn experience is going to be so all over the place and dictated by those connections that you made. And your uncle may be a nuclear plant runner and somebody else might be a chef. And if you have those two interest points highlighted in your social graph, then you're going to get posts about that stuff. And it throws it off and makes your feed useless. But if you really hone your audience down to people in the industry that you want to be, like one thing, Amory, I'm just wondering, like, what do you right now, and you may not have an idea, but what would you like to go into? What industry are you kind of interested in?
So if you had asked me that question like 3 months ago, I wouldn't have been telling you the answer I'm telling you right now because it has changed so many times. I was to the point stressed out and crying because I did not know what I wanted to do, and I was scared, and I didn't want to waste money on classes that I didn't like have to need in the
Yeah.
future when I went into choosing that major. But right now, I decided to double major in law and psychology and minor in advertising. I'm still in the earlier, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I'm not sure when we had this podcast talk. It was about some AI thing. I don't remember. Yeah, it was taking the class, right? I
Yes,
forgot what
I
it's
was
called. Yes, right.
had a different careers. Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those AI classes that got me interested in AI. Not necessarily looking at it as a career, but just looking at it to the point where I know, like at the back of my mind, that I know AI is gonna be something bigger by the time I have to be working every day. So I want that to be part of not high school, my college career just a little bit and after, but just as a main focus and where I see myself being. I just wanted to find something where I could help people and do something else that I love. So my mom encouraged law, and her friend also encouraged it. He's a psychologist. He didn't really see me in the psychology field, but I see myself in it, like helping people with ADD and ASB because my cousin, he is on the autism spectrum, and I would want to help people like him in that specific field and others. So I don't want to really give up that dream. Maybe it's not really gonna be what I'm gonna be doing. I have no idea, but
Mhm.
it is something that I would want to see myself and maybe funding a little bit or putting money towards or helping in any way that I can. I don't really have a set goal, but that's my goal right now.
Yeah, but I think you're talking about law and you're talking about psychology, and like those are totally intertwined. Like
Mhm.
what motivates people to do certain idiotic things that break laws. Like that's all
That's how
intertwined.
I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you're already going down a really interesting intersection, and then you add AI into law, and it gets like totally mind blowing because that's a whole new area of interesting intellectual property. Is like who owns the stuff that AI makes, and now like some companies are saying like, oh well, you trained on my data, so therefore I own whatever your AI creates. And, this is like a complicated law question that your generation is going to have to figure out. And so, like, that I think is really, that's the type of owning your interest down to like specific areas. It's through getting really specific that you find the most opportunity because you may go into looking at AI law and it's super boring and you're not into it. Okay, you've at least checked it out and really focused in on it so you can say, you know what, I'm feeling more like the psychology of law breaking is like where my, most interested point is. So I'm going to figure out a way to kind of get towards that. So yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. And to the earlier point of like partnering myself, a technologist, with an educator, my friend, like it's through marrying different things that new interesting stuff is created. So being into law and being into advertising aren't actually diametrically opposed. You're still trying to convince people in advertising, and you're still trying to convince judges, and you're still trying to convince jurors in law. So, I mean, it's very, very similar, the ways that you can look at things. And it really is just up to you to kind of find those similar threads throughout. But yeah, I think, it sounds very, very interesting what you have in your future.
Absolutely. And we're also talking because from my end, from the hot next generation careers, we want to look to marrying the students' passions with the jobs and you too, Jonathan, with Steps and Jules, trying to marry them with jobs that are going to be future proof, jobs that are going to be well paid, and hopefully ones that you can start sooner rather than later. But what I found, Jonathan, that you're kind of saying as a thread, it seems that one should focus on one thing, or maybe, if you say you're interested in law and psychology and AI, maybe you can ask ChatGPT to come up with 15 solutions, 15 occupations that might marry the two of them. And you could also ask ChatGPT to throw in that you like to help people. And then with the list of that AI has generated for you, which ones is something that really resonates with you most? And then is there something from this that you like that could get you training sooner rather than later? Because obviously a law degree is going to take a bachelor's and a law degree 7 years minimum. But if there's some way to interconnect them in a way that you can more quickly become an expert of some type, because Jonathan was an expert in tech and his friend was an expert in education. If you have something that you bring to the table, and then you're an expert in something that you have that to offer, and can then be potentially receptive to getting ideas, and you have this and the other person has this and another person is good with this, and then together you can create something. But to hone some type of skill, is that what you would say, John?
Yeah, absolutely. It's having something to offer and something that other people may not have. And I myself, really good creatively with technology, really bad with strategic planning. So my partner is really good with strategic planning, really bad with creative technology decisions, and we complement each other in that way. And so,
Right.
what I was talking about earlier about, don't convince yourself that because you like someone that they're the right fit to complement whatever skills you have. Just look at what they contribute and look at what you're contributing and see like, oh, okay, they're going to be able to sell all this stuff and I'm going to be able to build all this stuff. Together, we complement each other. And it really is something that you have to look at kind of clinically and be like, okay, out of this relationship, I'm contributing this, that other person is contributing that. It feels like an even exchange, and that is a good partnership and networking opportunity. So, yeah, lots of things to consider.
Right. So it is probably daunting for Amari to be sitting at the beginning of this and saying, okay, what choice should I make? But like we were saying, luckily with ChatGPT and with some AI suggestives, you can hone what it is you might be able to do more immediately than a bachelor's degree to start to get into a field that you like. And what you like is, of course, dependent on whatever it is that energizes you. If it's working as part of a team, or if it's working independently, if it's going and physically being with people, if it's to solve some kind of solution for the environment, or if it's something that is more you like to manage people, whatever it is that you like is where you should start. And then honing some kind of a skill related. I know that we've been on here for a long time, so I don't want to keep everybody, but I know Jonathan Stacks and Jules is giving real world exposure to students you said junior and senior years, and then also beyond upwards of 24 years old. Yeah. And so it's giving people like Amari some kind of an exposure to what's out there. It's one thing to read about career or think about career, but to actually go out and do something, trained in some skill towards a career in a quicker way than a 4-year degree is very incentivizing, I think. And I think it's a lot of good food for thought for Amari, for other seniors that are listening to this, for the parents that are thinking, how can I navigate this career pathway for helping my child? Because it is a little daunting and everything is changing right now with AI. So yeah, go ahead.
We do have an information session coming up December 6th that'll be offered via Zoom. So any students who are actually interested in just learning about the program, if you go to henrystreet.org/BAST, boy alpha sit tango that is the application for the Stacks and Jewels program, but it also lists that December 6th virtual session. And so if you go to that page, that can at least get you the information of how to learn about what Stacks and Jewels is, what it offers, and how you could take part in the program. So that again is henrystreet.org/BAST.
That's awesome. And so really, I think what we've been saying, but that Jonathan's saying is start now. Even if you feel like you don't have all the answers, taking a small step. It could be going on the henrystreet.org website. It could be reaching out to somebody who you think might provide a good mentorship for you. It might be going on LinkedIn. It could be going to ChatGPT and kind of narrowing down what you think you might want to study or be interested in career-wise. How you could start that more immediately with a community college program, with a certificate program. AI, there are certificate programs to be had there. They can really lead to big opportunities. And so when you start to build connections, Jonathan said, don't burn your bridges, because you really never know. Show up on time and be polite, and you don't know who's going to be coming back into your life. So you start building connections, the earlier the better. It helps you also build confidence, as Amari has been growing by leaps and bounds ever since just a few months ago that I met her in confidence. I think that you'll be prepared to take the next step when that is coming. Amari, I want to ask you, do you have any final piece of advice for students who are on the fence about networking and jumping in, gaining experience like you have? Like maybe you say, don't be afraid.
When it comes to advice, I know kids my age, when they hear the word advice, they think about lectures and stuff like that.
Okay.
But what I'm going to say is that I know what it feels like to be confused and not know what you want to do. And it feels like you're being pushed off the edge, getting ready to graduate, and then maybe don't have any idea what you're going to do. And so many kids are either going to college or just dropping out and going to work at maybe a restaurant or something. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but don't you want to do more? Like, there's so much more to do that's interesting. I grew into a person who is now wanting to learn new things. I was never interested in tech and AI, and now that I see not only is it gonna affect my future, but it's not that bad to learn new things. It's really gonna open ideas that you didn't even know that you probably even had. Like, it was there, but you just needed a spark to light it up. So what I'm gonna say is, don't be afraid to take that step. There are so many opportunities and people out there that wants to help. I never heard about Stacks and Jewels, and I'm so happy I did, because I mean, it's free. Like, it's free knowledge. Like, come on. Like, what? Like, so many people are paying for so many different things just to get that knowledge, just to get hands-on experience, and it's right here in front of you. And they push you on to so many things. It may not be popular. It may not be that top thing everyone is talking about, but it's a step, and it's in front of you, and then you can take it, and you can help the company grow. You could help yourself grow, and there's so many things out there you could do. And I think the main idea of all this is just to not be afraid and to just try. And if you fail, it wouldn't really be a fail, because at the end of the day, you tried. So you help yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan, do you want to say anything as your final concluding ideas about we're talking about networking, how it's opened the doors for you? It can open the doors, and you're now opening the doors for others.
Yeah, I mean, I just think networking is a key skill that's going to just be something that you have to develop. But once you do, you're going to use it throughout your career to great effect. It's through having, a good network that you're able to really succeed in business. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And so that has made sense for a long time, and it still does. So even though technology comes and goes, and AI is hot right now, and crypto is hot right now, and all these things, networking will still be the lifeblood of business 20 years from now. So the technology will come and go and change and whatever, but those relationships you have with those people who you trust, that's your wealth going forward. And so hold on to that and protect it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, there's LinkedIn if you don't have a network of your own. Amarie's still in school, so she has her built-in support school network when and if people go on to college. You also have a built-in school support network that one should really take advantage of because it's there, these are lifelong relationships. But there are opportunities for people that don't think like Jonathan's program. If you don't think that you're cut out for college, there are things that are better than Uber Eats. You actually can learn a skill. I did not know about facilities manager. I did not know about the sensors in the buildings. It makes so much sense. I'm so excited now to have like another ammunition in my toolkit of what to tell all of the students who come to me like, well, what if I don't like school? I mean, one does have to study something. One does have to develop a skill. And in order to do that, you have to go to a school of some sort. It doesn't have to be a 4-year degree. But in addition to learning that skill, we're talking about professional networking, gaining real world experiences is great, but also to pay attention to the people around you that can help. And it will definitely set you apart in today's job market. So we don't want to wait to look for opportunities. We want to go on meetup.com. We want to go on LinkedIn. We want to go on ChatGPT and find out really what might be the best available option for your particular passion, or what color is your parachute. There's an old book where people are diving into what really makes them tick, because at the end of the day, people might energize you. Saving the planet might energize you. Whatever it is that you find that your vision of your future, it's yours to take. But we do want to be here to support the high school students, support Marie, and definitely support Jonathan. And I want to spread the word about what you're doing. I will be part of the Parent Association in Forest Hills, so I'm all over that venue. I'll be talking up your Stacks and Jewels program and talking more about how to learn. I'll give the information how to learn more about your program. So thank you so much. Again, this is the Senior Year Game Plan podcast. We're giving actionable advice and success stories so that seniors in high school and their parents can navigate this uncertain future with some guidance and clarity, sharing networking opportunities. And here we are, Jonathan and I, helping, and Anne-Marie helping as many students as we can. So thank you so much. I'm going to press stop here, and thank you guys again. I'm not going to record anymore, so I press stop.